Welcome to Al Etijin News with Mariam Johnson. The headlines. Iran and world powers meet at the UN for nuclear talks. France expects UN Council to agree on punitive measures for Syria. British nationals may be involved in the Nairobi terror attack. Merkel pledges to keep Eurozone policy in the next parliamentary term. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani is keen to show Iran's true face to the world as he expressed that Iran only produced uranium for peaceful purposes. Iran's stance creates an arena for dialogue and the possibility of the development of relations with the US, a doorway of opportunity which until now has appeared closed. Our correspondent has this report.
Iran and world powers meet at the UN to discuss nuclear talks. Iran's top diplomats will meet the major powers on Thursday to hold the first round of talks to resolve the nuclear dispute between Tehran and the West. Iranian Foreign Minister said the meeting will mark the start of a new era on negotiations and it will represent serious commitments of foreign parties to reach solutions. Before heading to New York to attend the meeting, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani expressed that it was time to present Iran's true face and prove that his country produces uranium only for peaceful purposes. As part of his efforts during this trip, Rouhani said he is keen on delivering the voice of the oppressed people of Iran to the world. He promised that he will put an end to the illegal and unacceptable path of sanctions. In support of Rouhani's words, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, described the efforts as heroic flexibility, which will suggest a new willingness to engage in diplomacy with Iran's key opponents. In the meantime, US officials said there is also a chance that a meeting will be arranged between President Obama and Rouhani, but the Iranian Foreign Ministry denied the possibility and confirmed it wasn't part of the schedule. However, as part of a series of bilateral meetings on Monday, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif held the first meeting with British Foreign Secretary William Hague, where they briefly greeted each other and shook hands. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Hague said he welcomed Iran's statements for advancing relations with the West. He also added that words would not be enough in straightening concerns of its nuclear program.
Time is now right for those statements to be matched by concrete steps by Iran to address the international community's concerns about Iran's intentions. And if such steps are taken, then I believe a more constructive relationship can be created between us.
In a similar stance, President Barack Obama said on Tuesday that he wanted to put Rouhani's approach to the test and challenged him to take concrete steps in determining Iran's long-running nuclear dispute.
The removal of Syria's chemical weapons is also one of the items for discussion at the UN General Assembly, with France calling for Assad to face punitive measures if he fails to agree to the terms and conditions of the draft resolution. Our reporter has this story.
France's foreign minister said he expects the UN Security Council to agree on a resolution to enforce the chemical weapons deal with Syria and have appeared to back off French calls threatening force against President Bashar al-Assad. Discussions on Syria's civil war will be at the forefront as world leaders gather this week for the annual UN General Assembly. Envoys from the 5 big UN powers, the United States, Britain, France, Russia and China, have been meeting to negotiate a resolution to back the US-Russian deal reached in Geneva this month to remove Syria's chemical weapons by June 2014. Some UN diplomats have expressed concern about whether agreement on a resolution is possible in the face of sharp differences on the Security Council. France has been calling for Assad's government to face punitive measures if it fails to live up to the terms of the agreement, with an initial French draft Security Council resolution calling for an ultimatum to Damascus to comply. But with Western powers giving up on what UN diplomats call a trigger clause for automatic punitive measures in the event of Syrian non-compliance, prospects for an agreement between Russia and the West may be improving. The UN-Russian deal followed threats by US President Barack Obama to carry out military strikes against Assad's forces in response to an August 21st chemical weapons attack which killed 1,400 people. Assad's government blames the rebels for that attack. Russia and China have blocked 3 UN resolutions meant to pressure Assad during Syria's civil war raging since 2011. Russia accused the West on Sunday of trying to exploit the deal between Moscow and Washington to push through a council resolution issued under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, which could authorize sanctions or military intervention if the Syrian government backs out of its commitments. Shubhana Syed, Al-Ihtijar News.
It appears that 2 British nationals were involved in the terror attack in Nairobi, which led to the death of over 67 people. The group behind the killings, Al-Shabaab, have denied these claims. This is the story.
According to the Foreign Office in London, a British national has been arrested in Nairobi following the mall attack that killed over 67 people. The Foreign Office declined to comment on the report, stating only that the British authorities were aware of the arrest and stood ready to provide consular assistance. Kenyan police said that the British citizen was held in custody for questioning after missing his flight at Nairobi airport. According to news reports, the man acted suspiciously, attracting attention at gates because he had bruises to his face and was wearing dark glasses. Yesterday, Kenyan Foreign Minister Amina Mohamed claimed a British woman who has allegedly been involved in a terrorist attack many times before was among the militants who killed the shoppers in a Kenyan mall. Speculations have continued over the suspect Samantha Luthway, who has been married to the July 7 bomber Jermaine Lindsay and now has been accused of involvement in the Kenyan mall terror attack. Ms. Mohammed also said the British extremists acted alongside 2 or 3 Americans believed to be linked to the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, a Somalian-based ally of Al-Qaeda. However, Al-Shabaab dismissed comments by the Kenyan minister that Americans and Britain were among the militants because they were in constant contact with the attackers at the time. Al-Shabaab spokesperson said that those who describe the attackers as Americans and British are people who do not know what's going on in the Westgate building. Yusra Mahdi reporting, Al-Ihtijar News.
Chancellor Angela Merkel has won a 3rd term at the recent federal elections in Germany, making her the longest-standing female head of state, overtaking the late British Prime Minister Baroness Thatcher. Although Merkel's party, the Christian Democrats, won almost 42% of the vote, Merkel will need to create a coalition in order to establish a majority in Parliament. With the Social Democratic Party reluctant to comply and growing anti-Euro sentiment, Merkel has a challenging term ahead. Here is the full report.
Merkel pledges to keep Eurozone policy in next parliamentary term. German Chancellor Angela Merkel pledged to continue the same German policy on the Eurozone in the next 4-year parliamentary term. Merkel's remarks came on Monday, a day after federal elections were held, in which her Christian Democrats gained 42% of the vote. She said that the party's European policy will not change, even though the success of the newly formed anti-Euro Alternative for Germany party, which managed to gather 4.7% of the vote, highlighted a rise in anti-Euro feelings. Having won a 3rd term in office, Ms. Merkel is now in a position to overtake the late Margaret Thatcher as Europe's longest-serving female head of government. In the meantime, Merkel has to find a new coalition partner after her previous ally, the Free Democrats, lost all their seats in Parliament. The most likely outcome could be a grand coalition with her centre-left rival, the Social Democrats, which Merkel has been in contact with since elections were held. However, it appears the Social Democrats are not keen on joining a Merkel-led government, since the last time they were an ally was during her first 2005-2009 term, when the Christian Democrats seemed to take all credit for the government's achievements. This punished the Social Democrats, who saw its support plummet to record low results in the following election. Another possible alliance for Merkel would be to ask the Greens to join in a coalition, but experts say that would be certainly very hard, as the party is not a natural Merkel ally. According to opinion polls, a grand coalition of Conservatives and Social Democrats is the alliance most favoured by most Germans.
Greek workers started their 2nd public sector strike this week to protest against job cuts and the austerity measures being carried out in the country. The striking workers gathered in Athens to protest against recent government plans. These include the transfer of 25,000 public workers to a labour pool. Workers will receive reduced wages until they are relocated to another post or laid off. The property market, which went into decline in 2008, may finally be picking up in Britain, with the latest figures showing a steady rise in mortgage lending and a steady increase in property prices. Here is our London correspondent.
According to figures from the mortgage lender Halifax, the property market in Britain appears to be recovering. British banks approved the highest number of mortgages since December 2009 last month, raising the chances of further house price rises to come as the economy gathers speed. Figures from mortgage lender Halifax has pointed to house prices rising at an annual rate of more than 5%, above the rate considered sustainable by property industry body the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and has raised concerns about the risk of a new boom-bust cycle. The British Bankers Association said its members approved of 38,228 mortgages in August, up from 37,428 in July, more than a quarter higher than in August last year. The housing market has stepped up the year after the government launched the Funding for Lending scheme last year and Help to Buy in March to help home buyers. The FLS has lowered banks' financial costs, leading to cheaper mortgages, while Help to Buy assists home buyers struggling to find a large deposit for house purchase. The BBA reported that net mortgage lending remained muted, however, with the total amount outstanding on British mortgages dropping by £47 million as repayments slightly exceeded new lending. Mortgage approvals are also still well below the levels seen in the boom running up to 2008 financial crisis. Bank Governor Mark Conley has promised to be vigilant about the risk of another house price bubble and has indicated a preference to use more intensive supervision of lending rather than interest rates as an initial response. Yusra Mahdi reporting, Al-Ittijah News.
There may be some positive signs where the property market is concerned. However, the retail market in Britain still appears to be suffering. According to the latest figures, the British high street shops are closing down at an alarming rate of 18 a day across the country. Figures show that clothing stores and retailers of video and photography are bearing the brunt of slow business across Britain. Data also revealed that across the 500 areas analysed, more shops closed down than were opened for the first 6 months of business for 2013. Although the amount of closures is less than that for the first half of 2012, it still shows that retailers are suffering from reduced sales. The daily closures rate was 20 for 2012, but more shops were opening at the time compared to this year. Here is a recap of our main stories. Iran and world powers meet at UN for nuclear talks. France expects UN to agree on punitive measures for Syria. British nationals may be involved in the Nairobi terror attack. Merkel pledges to help Eurozone policy in next parliamentary term. Thank you for watching Al-Ittijah News. Goodbye.